As you can tell, it's raining outside, which means it's not a very good time for a wedding, and neither is it in Tom and Jerry, which is the entire setting of the film as it takes place in a hotel. I did also forget to mention that Michael Pena is in this film, so he is very funny and fits his character very well. Tom and Jerry stars Chloe Grace Moretz and is directed by Tim Story, and also stars Tom and Jerry. And so we are entered into a new age of live action Tom and Jerry, and basically they are able to fit in more with the city of New York than Chloe Grace Moretz's character Kayla, who does a lot to kind of get where she needs to be, just like Tom and Jerry do. And it doesn't always end up well for her, as it doesn't always end up well for them. Now, a lot of people are having problems with the film because I think of how the human characters are introduced, and it is a little inhumane. They do a lot of things that are exaggerated to move the plot forward, and the Tom and Jerry characters and all the other live action ones as well actually kind of have more of a grounded path that they are taking because they're animals and that's what they do on a daily basis. So I'm going to call them the Three Musketeers because that's how they felt, but not necessarily as a team. They felt like they were just all trying to manage their own agenda, even though they couldn't coexist with each other. Like their agenda would be messed up if they didn't meet or if they weren't introduced. And so that's why we have this live action story for us to kind of force Tom and Jerry into a more friendly situation and to also force Kayla into a more friendly situation with her fellow beings as well and the people that she's working with. Because at the start, she is very animalistic in the way that she tries to achieve things. And I will say, there is also a good balance of action between just Tom and Jerry and between Tom, Jerry, and Kayla. And along the way, you kind of do forget about the hotel's central problem with trying to protect the wedding and have it be the best wedding possible because you kind of just don't care about that side of the plot. You care more so about Tom and Jerry and what they are up to. But because Kayla is there always watching and trying to make sure that her job is secure, you also are aware of the other live action animals and aware of the other problems that Kayla is facing. It's also weird too to say this, but I feel like Tom and Jerry as well are also way more connected in this film together, like beneficially. I think that's a word, but more beneficially than Kayla is with anyone that she works with. Like I said, she's kind of just this pessimistic character. But through Tom and Jerry is able to overcome her own struggles and her own expectations of how she does things and is actually able to stand up for herself, which is something that Tom and Jerry try to do every single day, but they like that cat and mouse game, and so does Kayla. And so they're always going back and forth between each other. And it just adds more of a human element to the story than just the animal story. But you don't really care about the human story, which makes you not care about Tom and Jerry's endeavors or journey as much. And I think that's another thing that people are having lots of problems with in this film. But you got to remember that it is a kids movie, and so it strictly is for kids. The characters themselves, though, are kind of also kids as well, and that's something that I realized halfway throughout the film, is that you're not supposed to take these characters or the situation seriously. So everything seems animated or more exaggerated than it should be, because that is the whole setting of this film, and without that, then it doesn't really work in the big world as it does on the smaller screen when you're just watching Tom and Jerry. Now, early on in the film, there are a lot of storylines set up, and so you kind of forget about those storylines until a certain point in the film, and then you kind of get remembered about the hotel, about the other animals, and it all gets wrapped up by the end, but it's definitely a bumpy ride with a lot of traps in between. Now, they do put a twist on the Tom and Jerry story because in the Tom and Jerry show, they are always after each other, and even in their own films as well, they are always still trying to beat each other at whatever it is that they are doing, or quite literally. And so that, I feel like, is what Kayla's character was taken, or it was replaced by, and so we try to spend more time with her, even though we don't care about the character necessarily. And so whenever she puts this dilemma and this ultimatum on Tom and Jerry, that is when we get the new Kayla and understand that maybe she's more than what she's been in the whole entire film throughout. And it does take a long time, but we do get to see a little bit of that. And again, it's all thanks to Tom and Jerry, not really her own prerogative or her own intentions. It just kind of falls that way because she needs to get out of this situation in order to save herself. So she still is very much looking out for herself, but now she has the burden of Tom and Jerry also to look after, and which makes her responsible for the other mistakes that she has made throughout the film. And finally, I would like to say that in the show, I do feel like Tom and Jerry got away with being more mean towards each other because that is what the story is about. That's what makes Tom and Jerry Tom and Jerry. But once they get introduced more into the human world, then that is when it starts affecting other people. And so their relationship has other possibilities and other routes it can take, even though throughout the whole time they are still trying to beat each other up. But in a way, it's more for them to grow than each other and just them single-handedly trying to achieve something. Now, I will say I did not see this film in theaters, so with that being kept in mind, and again, the target audience that this film is for, I'm a huge fan of the Tom and Jerry series, but I just haven't watched any recently in a very long time, so it was a nice refresher on these characters and that they're still around and very still within our culture, and I hope they stay that way. I hope we do get more Tom and Jerry stories, but not like this. It's just a little bit too on the nose for the target audience, and it doesn't allow any of the viewers to really think for themselves. It's just kind of about the jokes, and of course they're either hit or miss, and it's about just trying to get along and not always looking out for yourself as Tom and Jerry do. But it's Tom and Jerry, so at the end of the day, they're going to do what they want to do. They're animals, but now they're thinking of themselves and others. So with that all being said, I'm going to now give my rating. On Letterboxd, I gave the film a 1.5, and my rating out of 100 is going to be a 25% as of now. I did have fun with the film, but I did not like it. So that is the best way that I can put it. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.